Welcome to another Disney Infinity tutorial. Now, following on from my how to build an atom bomb, I said I would explain in this clip how to blow the buildings up when the ash cloud come. So I got slightly sidetracked and I've decided to show you how to rob a bank. The same logic applies. So let me just give you a run through the map. What I've got here is a couple of characters. I've got red in the background, and basically on my right here there's a bank. And we're going to set the charges, light the fuse, and we're going to blow open the building and go rob the money. So that's the plan. Now, like I said at the beginning, it's the same logic I used for blowing up the buildings after the atom bomb. But what I've also done in this little clip is showed you what triggers these events off. So what you'll see is as we ride around the map, we come to this lamp. This is where we're going to set the fuse, but you'll see there's no logic, nothing comes up because we haven't done the objective in the game. And this objective is first to have a chat with Red to get the mission to rob the bank. So I'm just going to go and have a quick chat with Red. And as I go up to, you'll see it comes up with the conversation, would you like to have a chat? And if I press that button, so if I go back and have a chat with her, it will then trigger off the thing, you need to rob the bank. Now that logic I've already done in one of my videos called how to get a mission from Jabba the Hutt. So what we're going to do here is now that we've had that chat, it's released the logic, which now means I can now light the fuse and blow up the building. So we come back to our lamp, sneaking around the back. I'm now going to get it now says light the fuse, so I can now light the fuse and the fuse will burn the gunpowder along the bottom. Maybe going a little bit too fast, probably slow that down a bit. And the fuse will go into the building and hey presto, blow up the building. Maybe use a little bit too much dynamite there, but that allows me to go in and hopefully inside the bank, there's the briefcase of money. I can pinch the money and now I can escape out of town. If you create this type of effect, you may want to have it that when the building blows up, an enemy wave appears, so you have a load of cowboys or enemies you have to shoot your way to get out of town with the money. We'll just do it in slight style and leave. There you go. Right, so that's what we're going to show you. So let's get an empty toy box. So what we're going to need to look at is which toys, which buildings can we blow up. And there's only a type that I found that you can do this. On your toy box, if you go to Toy Origins, and if you go to the Lone Ranger set, all these buildings and all the buildings in the Lone Ranger set, I find that you can blow up, which is great. So with how long, I'll just put a couple of these buildings on the toys in my toy box. Just pick any old couple ones out. But you can shoot any of these and they blow up. So you've got these buildings here. So just to prove it, I will then blow these buildings up. And you can do that just by shooting at them. Hey presto, and they blow up. Fantastic. So I thought, great, we can break into these buildings. So what I then thought, if we can do that, let's have a look at the logic. So you can go back to them, you can rebuild them, that's not a problem there. So I thought, well, let's get the logic and let's trigger those to get blown up. You'll notice there is no logic. You cannot, in a code, trigger that to occur. So that was my first dilemma. So I thought, that's no good. What can we do? So then I came across, if we go back to our gameplay toys, there is a set of explosive. So let's go back to explosives. So I'm just going to find these ones. Hold on. There we go. And the more you unlock, the longer it takes you to find these toys, I have to say. But I'm going to find the explosives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these explosives on top of the building. Right, so I'm going to stick these up on top. I'm going to stick them on there, okay. And then obviously to reset my explosive, I need one of those reset-o-matics. I'm just going to place that down so I can retest this. Right, so we come back off that. So I now have some dynamite on top of the building. And actually, to blow up a building, you need at least 2 blocks of them. One is not enough, it only just damages it. Now, as you'll see, the blocks of dynamite appear on the screen. So what I can do now is I can now shoot it. So if I shoot the box, whoops, it does help if I use it with a gun. Whoa, too close, I go blow up and I get killed. So if I reset the building, press my square blocks, and press on my reset-o-matic, the dynamite reappear on the screen. Now what you'll have to agree is big dynamite sat on top of the roof. It's quite obvious that you can blow it up, so it looks a bit horrendous on there. But I thought, okay, well if that's how you do it, that's what we'll use. But then when I notice, if you go back and reset it, if I get my use the wand and point to the dynamite, you'll know there's no logic against those as well. So I couldn't blow those up, so I need something to make those bomb explode. So now we know the tools I need to find another tool to make it all blow up, which I'll show you next. So on a clear toy box, what we're going to do now is we're going to set some dynamite up first. So I'm going to get the tools back out, and I'm going to use the blocks, but the blocks are the first thing I'm going to lay down. Now what I found here is I used to put the two blocks together, but I'm actually going to raise it above the ground, and this is important because there's a little glitch here that when you let go of the dynamite, you'll notice, and I just point out briefly, they just drop slightly. So I'm just putting 2 blocks of dynamite because you need 2 to blow it up. Then I'm going to use my simple tools, and I'm going to get some blocks of wood here, and I'm just going to have the slope ones at an angle. So I'm just going to slide these just a fraction underneath. I still need them to fit flush, but just a fraction underneath the screen here. You'll see just a little glippage. So there's 2 levels, so you're going to see they drop down. Now obviously I don't want them to, as soon as they drop, they will hit the ground, so I don't want to get them to drop from that height. So this is just they drop a little, and by doing that they won't explode. Okay, but there is a glitch when you sit them flush to the ground, otherwise they jump straight underneath the ground the next time, so they won't work the next time you load it up. So I'm going to set that up. So that there is where my dynamite's going to be rested. Now if I go back to my toy origins now, and I go to the Lone Ranger set, and I get the bank, I'm now going to place that on top of the dynamite. So in the game you won't actually notice that there's dynamite even set underneath it, and so as the user can't see it, they can't accidentally shoot it and blow it up. So I'm going to lay that over the top. Now where the map is, that is now going to be my land level. So I'm now going to use some terrain, and I'm going to build on top of it. So the terrain I'm on now, the big giant blocks, I'm going to get rid of once I finish the setup. So I'm just going to get my terrain blocks, and I'm just going to fill the land in for now, this particular example. So I'm just going to place these around the blocks. Now I'm going to leave the side open so you can see all the stages that I've done, but I'm just going to put the land in. So in the game the user won't see it at all. Right, I get the gist of it. Right, so I'm now going to come out of here. Now what I'll show you here is, now look at the dynamite underneath the building. If I come out of the spark mode, once we blow this up, as we come down here, you'll notice that a lot of these things will drop slightly. So as you look behind it, look, they just drop. 3, 2, 1, and they just drop slightly on the screen, but just enough. Now if I left the 2 on the ground, they'll hit the bottom and blow up instantly. So that means the dynamite will appear and just drop on the screen. And if there wasn't, the bug would be that they would actually drop through the land and appear at the bottom. So I've now got my dynamite and my building set up. But before I set all those up, I'm going to get on to the next stage. Let's go back out of here. Right, what I'm going to do, just filter this through, hold on, right. There we go, not dynamite. I need the item that I'm looking for is when we open up the safe. Now I haven't found in the collectibles any money or coins. So in this case I'm going to use the briefcase of money. So let's just find the collectible, which is the briefcase. Okay, now there's a slight problem with this, is that if you put the briefcase inside the building, yeah, you don't need to blow it up, you can just shoot it open. So I only want the briefcase to appear if I actually blow it up. So I'm just putting the briefcase by the side of it at this present stage. So what I'm going to do now is just manually shoot the building, and there's nothing, you can't stop anyone from doing that. So I'm just going to shoot this building now just to blow it up. Okay, so there's my building. Now before I repair it, I'm going to put the block inside that particular unit, and you'll see when I blow it up, the dynamite's still there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that item and I'm going to put that inside the building. So I'm going to go and grab and move it, and see straight away it says you can't put the object inside it. It won't do it. It gives you a raspberry say you can't do that, which is slightly frustrating, but I want it inside the building. And so I almost gave up, and then I realised, hold on for a second, you can put it inside the building. Yeah, you can put it by using a path creator, because path creators go through anything. So in this case here, I'm just going to create a circle. Okay, so I'm going to click this in here, and I'm just going to do a little circle here, just going to do my 3 points. Yeah, don't have to go all the way around because I'm then going to change the setting. So after using my path tool, make a little circle, I'm just going to go back to the property of that, square the property of that, and I'm going to say it's looped. Now you might want to reduce the speed down, it doesn't have to spin so fast, but I am going to have it looped, so I've got a circular section on the screen. Okay, and then the object will go through, and I'm going to connect that object to that particular loop, but I'm not going to do it straight away. Okay, so what the first is, we're the first bits of tools that we're going to need. Right, so let's go to our creativity toys, and let's bring these items in. Right, the first one I'm going to want is a level starter. Now, you'd set this up, we're going to have it as a button, but I use the level starter, so when load up, I'd like to make the money disappear. So when they load it up, there's no way that money is going to appear on this particular screen. So I don't have to keep loading up the game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button to act as that level starter. But a level starter I'd have set up to say hide that particular point. So that button there is going to act like a level starter. Yeah, so I'm going to put that in that section. Okay, so what I'm going to do is when we press on that button, or on the level starter when it starts, I'm going to hide the money. Therefore, if I do smash up the building, no one will find any money in the screen, so you won't be able to collect it. Okay. Now I'm going to create another button, and this is going to act like the trigger, like I've had the conversation with Red in the example. So that'll be when I press that button, that means that conversation's been done on the screen. Right, now the other little tools I'm going to need is a logic gate. Okay, so I'm going to have that logic gate in there. And remember, logic gates, I say this in all my clips, they start as open when you open up the screen. Right, I'm also going to need a dynamic trigger. Okay, that's important as well, so I know in a certain area. Where's my other option? And a content button, yep. Because that content button says, right, we're going to trigger off setting the fuse and lighting it. Okay, so we need those three buttons. So this is the bit that when we have our conversation confirmed, I can light the fuse, which will set the button off. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to set a focal point of where do I want the fuse to be lit from. So going back to the Lone Ranger set, I'm going to find that that lantern somewhere along here. Where is it? No, I could use a wagon, but I'm not going to use a wagon. Where is it? Where is it? I'm not going to use that one. That's it. I use lantern pole because it's got the flame on it as well. So that's going to be my focal point. That from there is where I'm going to light the fuse. So I'm going to go back to my creativity toys now, and I'm going to grab some locators. Okay, now that locator is at the area, so when I go to the lantern in that particular area, it's going to trigger off that particular button. Okay, so I've now put the locator on that particular pole. So this is the start off point, so I'm going to link these to connectors. So the dynamic trigger, I'm going to use that to locator, and I'm going to point to the dot that I just added, which is at the post. Okay, now when I go to that area, so I'm going to go back to my dynamic trigger, and I go to the properties of that. I'm going to say make sure, I always forget to do that, change the dynamic trigger to be to the locator, and I want it to be when you're really close. So we're going to say well, 2 or 1, one of those two options, probably 1 because you have to be right on it. Okay, so that when you go to that area, it will trigger that button off. So in that case then, when we do a new logic connection, when entered into that area by anybody, yeah, probably wants to be player, yeah, actually not by anybody because I don't want anyone to walk it through. It's when a player enters that area, any player, what I want to do there is I want to input an item into that logic gate. So that's always going to be active, but like I say, when it starts off, that logic gate is always open. So when we achieve our task of collecting the person or speaking to Red, we're going to close that logic gate. So in this case, when that input from that logic gate is blocked, I'm going to activate the button. So the dynamic button is now going to be activated. Okay, and that gate gets locked when we do that job. Now in this case then, this button is going to come up, And the property of the button, that's where it's going to prompt the user and display it for a couple of seconds to say light the fuse. Okay, so I'll just change the text to say light the fuse. Okay, so I've got that set. So when I press the button, that will then light the fuse. But what I am going to do is when pressed, therefore we've set the trigger in play, presses it. What we're going to do is we're going to say, right, we've then actually lit the object. So in that case, you can now make that visible. So I'm now going to reset that. Well, now can see that by the user. So if they break into the building beforehand, then they won't see it. But now that we've done it via the fuse, that will now reappear. And as the fuse goes in and builds the building, that will appear inside the safe. Okay, so all I've got to do now is link that object. Now I've done that to the path. Let's link it to the path, and that's inside the building. And now I've got the object inside it, so that's now all triggered. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and press that first button and act like the program's just loaded up on the screen. I'm going to go too fast. So if I press that first button, that will then get the thing disappearing. You'll see there it will disappear on the screen. There is no money in the safe. Now I'm also going to go up to the flagpole, and you'll notice no message appears, no trigger, because the logic gate is currently open. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to create a link on this button to say, right, if when we've done our setting, we've spoken to red, or we've done some sort of topic, yeah, what I'm going to do is when we've done that, I would like to close that gate. So then I know that job has been done, which will then activate my area. So if I now press that button, that will now close the gate, which means now when I come through, the dynamic trigger will go through to the content button, and it now will say light the fuse. So I can actually go up and press the button, and it will now light the fuse. And when I light the fuse, you'll notice inside the bank, the money will now appear. That way the user has to go through this route for the money to appear on the screen. Now on the target, maybe sometimes it's too close, you've got to be right on the pulse, so I may want to make that larger, so make it 2. Sometimes I change that to property 2 to make it slightly larger on the screen. But that now gets my money to appear, my dynamic to appear on the screen, so that gets the message going. So what we're going to look at doing now is we're going to look at getting the fuse going along the line and blowing up. So that's our next stage. You see there I've got the property 1, it's too close, so I'm going to make that larger. You have to be virtually on the box. So let's just try that again. If I walk up to it again now, let's have a look. That's a bit better, I don't have to be right on top of it. So probably about 2 distance 2, but you can play around with those settings. So press the button, the thing disappears, go up to the box, that'll act like you've done the job. When you go up to the box, light the fuse, I can get the money to appear back in the bank. Right, so let's get the fuse going and let's get the whole thing blowing. But before we do that, let's repair the building so the building's back to normal, so you can't see the money whatsoever. Right, so the next stage. So get your creativity toys back up, and what we're going to use now is the path tool. And the path tool is the line of where the fuse is going to go along on a particular box. So we'll take our path tool. I'm just going to have that slightly in front of the starting post, so you'll see it start. And you can have it weave in and out and wave around the place. And again, in my original clip, I probably had it too fast. Now, this is important. You must have these points. We need these points. So what you're going to do here is, up to the point of the doorway, I'm going to make sure I keep a point right close to the very door. Right, now I'm inside the door. I'm going to go through the dynamite. Make sure you go through it. I'm going to go down and make sure you leave at least three or four dots, because at different stages of these dots, I'm going to get it to do different sections. So that is the path on the screen. Okay, so I need to make sure you've got at least 3 points at the end of the path. So that is how our fuse is going to go along through the list on that particular item. I need also a locator, because that is the object that's going to move along the path. Yeah, but we'll put that section on later. Right, so now I've got the path. What I'm going to need to use are a few other little tools here. I'm going to need to use a kill switch. Okay, that kill switch, I'm going to tell it to kill anything in the area. Okay, I'm also going to need the effects generator, which is the flame. And I'm also going to need not content button. I'm also going to need the dynamic trigger again, that when you're in a certain area for it to happen. and I'm going to need a logic gate. Okay. Right, so with the effects, I'm going to say, right, with that effect, can we link that to the locator? So link that to the locator. Okay. With the dynamic button, I'm also going to link that to the same locator. Okay. Now on the dynamic trigger, I'm going to have to go to the properties and tell it it's the locator. Okay, and I'm going to set that to, I don't know, probably 2 or 1. It doesn't have to be a particularly large number. Now that, as it goes along, it's going to follow along the path all the way through. Now at some point I want to trigger that area is deadly. So you know these little points that I made before the door, I'm just going to pick one right close to the very door, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that whole area too deadly. So I'm going to say, when you reach along the path, can we close that gate? Yeah, so can you close it so the gate then becomes closed? Now on this trigger area, we're going to say new logic connection, right? When you enter the area, anything, by the way, it can't be play, it has to be anything. I've tried it, that's the only option you do. So when any object enters that gate, can you input a signal into that gate? Now new logic connection, when that is blocked, what I'd like you to do is defeat it. But because you chose anything, it will defeat anything, which will then actually make the explosive explode. Yeah, so I like you to defeat anything. And when we did the atom bomb, I had the ash cloud at the bottom, defeat anything. Now once we finished, it comes through this path and it blows everything up. Now when I get to this checkpoint, I'm going to do when path reached, what we've done is that dot is deadly. Can we reopen the gate? Okay, and by reopening the gate, it makes the thing no longer deadly. So no, it won't come back and then kill me as I run to the safe. Otherwise the cloud will come back. Yeah. Now another tool I'm going to need to do is, I may want to blow the building up again at a later stage. I may want to reset it, so I'm going to preset this already. So I'm going to put one of the reset-o-matics down here. Now I don't want anyone else just to set up and stand on it. So what I'm going to do, next option, you can say when it reaches one of the other points, yeah. So as it moves through, it goes back, closes the gate, makes it active. On the next point, I can say when it reaches this path, can we click onto this pressure pad, and can we reset those blocks? I want them all reset, so it's ready again to blow up again in next time. So that point's reached. And on the last one, we're going to say, right, when it reaches the very last point, sorry, on the same point actually, so the second to last point, can we switch off the looping effect? Because otherwise I'm going to have the flame going on all the time. So when it gets to the second point, can I also turn off the gate? And when I get to the last point, so new logic connection, when point reached on path, can you reset and stop the movement so the thing doesn't move on the screen? So now that got done, now I've got all that logic, I can now put that path to the screen. So let's say, right, path connection, and link that item to the tool. So I'll connect that path up, and that will go through on the screen. I'll also now need to link my other button on that item, so I'm going to link that to the path, new toy box path, and it now starts to move all the way through. Okay, so that will be the flame ticking along. When it gets to the point, it now becomes deadly. It switches the logic gate on. That now blows up. It now switches it off. The dynamite reappears, and you'll now see the gate has stopped on the thing. Now if I come back round here, you'll see my building's money on the screen, and if I go back round, you'll see the money's there for me to pick. Yeah, I'm just going to rebuild it. But you'll now see the dynamite is back on the screen. And that's when, if I didn't have them on those slopes, it didn't reappear. Okay, so the last thing I need to do here is that when I press that button, so new logic connection, when that is pressed, what I'm going to want you to do is I want you to actually start the effect on the screen. So new logic connection, when that is pressed, yeah, by the triggering player, and then all I need to go is to the effect, and I can say, can you play on a looped basis when it's the fire and it's the blazer one, the blazing flame, can you set the flame off on the screen? That will now get the flame moving along the screen and doing the actual item. So let's give that a quick test run. So I'll act as like the game just loaded up, so there is now no money in the safe. We do our objective in the story. That will now trigger the gate and close it, which now means the thing is active, and when we press this, it'll light the fuse. And that should move, but the one thing I forgot to do is that after it loaded up, it resets that gate, and I haven't told it to move. So not only do I have to tell it to do the trigger, I have to actually tell it to do the path. So actually, when I press the button, I want the effect to occur, and then I want to do, when the item's pressed, can we go to our path tool, so the triggering player, and can we then tell, not the locator but the one below it, can we tell the path? Should have used probably spark mode here. In fact, I'm going to use spark mode. I'm now getting better at this one, so let's go back to my spark mode. So we'll recap on that. When I press the dynamic trigger, when it's pressed by the player, triggering player, I'm going to go to my, not locator, but the actual path tool, there it is, and I'm going to do reset and play. That's the one thing I forgot, otherwise I've got the burning fire. Okay. So let's go back, and it's already lit, but let's actually pretend it's button again. So we walk back into the area, light the fuse, and that now sets the flame off. That gives us the effect of the flame going across the bottom. It goes into the building. Now as it goes into that area is deadly, so if I'm that close I would have died. It blows up the safe. And there's my money, which I can go and grab. Job's good. And that's how you get the fuse to build up and blow up on the screen. So if I reset the thing again, so reset the path, do a button, this will work better this time. I've done my objective. Now as I move across, light the fuse comes up, now it'll work and that'll do the job. And it's all set up to reset itself every time, so I don't have to then rechange the logic. It will do that every single time. And that's how you can get a fuse to blow up the building. Now I'm just going to go over the whole clip again, but what I did when I built this particular option, I built all the buildings first and then I put the logic in afterwards. So we have a recap on the whole thing done, and just to give you an idea of how you can use it. But it can be trigger off buildings. It can once those done, it can trigger off a wave as well, all various sorts of things. Okay, but let's have a look at again in the final version. And strangely enough, all I've done is line these buildings up quite nicely. But there you go. There's Red. How you doing? Now in this one, I've just added now a few enemies as well. So I've got a few people in there. So I've spoken to Red, which is the trigger. I come around the back here. Okay. Now one thing I'm going to show you here is you'll see that you can't see any of my logic. That's because underneath the level I've placed all my logic. Once I've done it, I've hidden it out of the way so the user can't see it. So they're all hidden underground. But this is the Colby set, so everyone should be able to access this through the toy box. So if I now go get my gun through, take my wand away, and go back into town, I've got the gangsters running around the place. So as I go up close, they're going to start shooting me. Yeah, hold on, let's get rid of a couple of these. Right. So I could have the gang rob the bank instead, so I could be the sheriff. So when I press the button, the bank blows up. So now I can light the fuse goes on. Stand back a bit. And what I can do now is I can run in and steal the treasure, or the money in fact. Do it in style, and then get out of dodge. Woohoo! Well, there you go. I hope you like this video. I've got more coming. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. Cheers.